Hey folks, welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast. Today we are talking in-laws and parents and how to negotiate that. 9 do's and don'ts for surviving parents and in-laws. We're excited about our podcast today.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life. They cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Hello, everybody. We are so glad that y'all have joined us this afternoon or this morning or this evening, whenever you might be listening.
I still have not got to the point where I don't smile about the dog running away thing.
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
Still makes me laugh. Every time. Hey, Miss Morgan, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm very thankful for air conditioning right at this current time.
It has been hot in
It's
Texas.
been very, very hot in Texas.
Has it been hot everywhere else? I'm sure it
I
has.
think it kind of has been pretty hot everywhere.
We've had a cold front come in today. Much cooler temperatures. It's supposed to get to only 100 today.
Only. I think my weather app said 102, so
Well,
yours is better than mine.
111 and 112, so I'll take 102.
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
It has been an oven. It's been ridiculous. So hopefully y'all aren't burning up where you are. But hopefully you've got some air conditioning and you're staying cool. We're talking in-laws today, but I wanted to, before we got there, wanted to say thanks for all the folks who came out to Lubbock this past weekend for the Stronger Marriage Getaway.
So much fun.
It was. We had a great weekend. We enjoyed our time with a lot of couples. We social distanced. We wore kind of masks between breaks. Everybody did a good job with all the pandemic stuff going on right now. But we had a full house. I say a full house minus social distancing,
Right.
meaning couples had their chairs set up 6 foot apart from the next couple. But boy, we've heard some great stuff and great feedback, and it was just a lot of fun. So if you come out to Lubbock, or if you came out to Lubbock, we're glad you came. If you were unable to get there, there was a waiting list. It filled up quick. We will be in Andrews, Texas in October, and Amarillo in November. So we'll still be in this area a little bit. I will tell you that our Woodlands, Texas event has been postponed till sometime after the first of the year. Just for COVID reasons right now. There's a lot of sickness in that area, and we just feel safer and feel like it's the best thing to do right now. And so sometime after the first year, we'll pick up a weekend and head that direction and do a workshop down there.
That's right. We always look forward to going to that area. We have good crowds, and so we will definitely get that back on our schedule at some point.
It will. We're excited about that. So let's talk a little bit about in-laws. Now, I will throw out there real quickly that we had good in-laws, I think. I've had some fantastic in-laws. And
Absolutely.
I feel like you feel the same way too. And they've helped us. They've taught us a lot. And we've learned a lot. But we've also heard a lot of horror stories from other couples about in-laws and about kids and the way they've treated their parents. And so we're going to do this from both sides. We're not just going to say, hey, all in-laws are terrible, they're outlaws, ignore them. You know, we are going to give some rules for how to negotiate in-laws. But we also want to talk to you as a couple, as a married couple, on how you are supposed to treat your parents. And so this is really important for you as well, because sometimes the in-laws don't do anything wrong, and you've got a spouse that just has something out for them, and we're going to talk about some of that. The thing is most all marriages come with in-laws. You get them whether you like them or not.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing. So let's talk about 9 do's and don'ts for surviving in-law wars, or how to do
Hopefully
a
you don't have.
relationship.
Yeah, we don't want you to have any in-law wars. So hopefully you're going to tune into this and nip some things in the bud.
That's exactly right. So let me just ask you straight off the bat, because this is number 1 on our list, and it's number 1 because it is the most important. by far number one on the list, do's and don'ts for surviving in-laws and having a relationship with your in-laws, for having a good marriage and in-laws. Number one is, you go ahead and say it, Miss Morgan.
That you put your spouse first.
All right, now I'm going to say it again because we want you folks to catch that. Your spouse comes first. Spouse before parents. Your partner, your spouse, your marriage are your top priorities, and you need to respect your marriage. We have some friends that one time made the comment about Adam, and I've kind of taken this quote and ran with it a little bit, but God created marriage first. When you get to Genesis chapter 2, God created a man named Adam, and then he created marriage. Adam, when God looked and said, what does Adam need? God did not give Adam a mom or a dad. That was not what he gave Adam. God did not give Adam a child, a neighbor, a church, a social club, a motorcycle club. God said, here's what Adam needs, and he gave him a wife. And that's supposed to be Adam's number one most important earthly relationship, was with his wife. And we love what verse 24 says of Genesis. This is actually God speaking, and God says, after he created man and woman, he said, go ahead, Miss Morgan.
When you marry, you are to leave your father and mother and cleave to your new spouse. I think that was probably a paraphrase there, but anyway, that means that your spouse becomes your number one, and your parents are no longer your number one. You don't live under their roof. You don't, you've got your own rules now. And when you put your parents over your spouse, you're just inviting trouble to your marriage.
Yeah, the two become one flesh is what Genesis chapter 24 says. You leave your father and mother and you become one flesh with your spouse. Your spouse has priority over your relationship with your parents. Now, you are to honor your parents, yes, but your spouse is still number one. Now, the word honor means to show respect, and I think we've both done a good job at respecting our in-laws in our marriage. I've respected my in-laws, and you've respected your in-laws. We have treated them with kindness and with dignity, and that is to be expected. In-laws do not have to be your enemy. They can be a absolutely fantastic benefit to your marriage.
Yes, and I feel like I got lucky, and I just got a bonus set of parents when I married you, because your parents were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. We're going to talk a little bit to parents in a minute if you've got kids that are married, but I threw something out on Facebook this week about in-laws, and they have the power to do great things in their kids' marriage or to cause a lot of stress, and to be cautious about causing a lot of stress. And I felt so good that there was a lot of people who said, I had absolutely fantastic in-laws. And that's what we're looking for.
Yes, that's the way it should be.
Yeah. If there's a conflict of interest, since we're still talking about putting your spouse first, if there's a conflict of interest between a man's wife, now we're going to talk about a husband for a sec. We're going to pick on husbands for just a minute. But if there is a conflict of interest, if you're a husband, you're listening to this, if there's a conflict of interest between you, your wife, and your mother, you as a husband are to stand by your wife. This does not mean that the mother has to be treated unkindly. It means that she is no longer the dominant female in your life. It's just not that way. No couple will ever reach its potential. No marriage will ever be like really good without this psychological break from parents. You leave, the old King James Version used to say, you leave and cleave. You leave your parents and cleave to your, that means there's a break. You are separating now from your parents, and your new connection is with your spouse. And of course that works with any relationship, a husband's relationship with his mom or dad, a husband's relationship or a wife's relationship with her mom or dad. Your spouse comes first.
That's right. I guess that's where we kind of get the phrase of cutting the apron strings. You kind of got to let loose of the parents and, get new strings with your wife, I guess.
Hey, let me throw this out there. This is good, and I know this isn't the topic, but this is good stuff. If you're newly married or going to get married, there's an old phrase about sons having a hard time cutting the apron strings from their mama. And we talk in our workshop about how much men love praise. They feed off of praise. Mamas have been their greatest source of praise in their life for their however many years they've been on this earth. And so it's kind of tough sometimes to cut those apron strings if they look to that source of encouragement and praise from their mama. So basically what I'm trying to say, wives, if you want your husband to cut the strings from mama, you need to outpraise his mama. You need to give more praise than his mama's going to praise. He needs to look to you for praise, not to his mama, and that will happen.
That's a good point. Another way that's really hard, makes it really hard to cut the apron strings, is when we're overly dependent on our parents after we get married. When you're ready to get married, you need to be an adult.
If you're old enough and adult enough to get married,
you need to, you need to be ready to pay all your own bills. You need to be independent. You don't need to still rely on your parents to pay bills and bail you out of stuff, because you're just inviting them to be in your business if they're still paying your bills.
Yeah. Do everything you can to do life on your own. Will there maybe be a time where you have to go, hey, we need some help or we need some advice? Yes, and that's okay. But do everything you can in your power to do bills and life and marriage on your own without constantly having to work your parents and your in-laws in there. That is important. All right, let's go to number 2. 2 out of 9.
Spent a lot of time on that first one.
Yes, we did.
All right, so we need to set some boundaries.
Yes, with parents, set some boundaries. You and your spouse need to have some clearly defined boundaries on your marriage. Decide who comes in, when, under what circumstances. Of course, you've promised to forsake all others, and that includes your parents. And you need to be united in this front, not divided, meaning you need to talk about all things that deal with your in-laws together and not make decisions without your spouse. Set some boundaries.
In-laws should only be allowed as a guest in your marriage. They're to be welcomed in your marriage. They must come alongside of you, but never between you.
Yeah, that's an unhealthy situation. And never put your spouse in a situation where he or she has to choose between you and a relative. That's a terrible, terrible thing to tell your spouse. Well, you're just going to have to choose between me and my mama, or whatever it is. If you do so, you're just putting your spouse in a big bind. Don't pull stunts like that. Be cautious about trying to make your spouse choose between you and anybody else. So do set boundaries, but be cautious about that as well. Here's a big one, all right? And we'll try not to spend too much time on this one, but we're going to do a little preaching on this one, all right? Do figure out holidays up front, all right? Because your parents and your in-laws both want to see you. And as early as possible, decide how you want to spend the holidays and other important occasions together as a couple, whether it's the grandkids or the kids' birthdays or whatever it is. Do not just go along and hope you can fix it all later. You make a plan. And by far, the best plan is what? It's worked for us really well with our kids because we're in-laws.
That's right. We swap every other year, meaning this year for Thanksgiving, we're kind of on our own. Our married kids, we know, are going to be spending Thanksgiving with their in-laws,
with their parents.
With their parents, yep. Our sons, wives, parents, and so
we may not see them at all.
Yeah, we just know it. We have 2 sons that are not married, and so we'll just have a little bit smaller Thanksgiving this year. So that means that Christmas is when we will all be together. And so and then the next year we swap.
That's right.
So the next year we'll all be together for Thanksgiving, and we won't have everybody for Christmas. And as hard as that is, that's just the way it's got to be, and sometimes we can work it out at Christmas where, maybe we can see them, a week before Christmas or a week after Christmas and exchange a couple of gifts or whatever. But if it doesn't work out, it just doesn't work out. And we know that, that's the plan, and that's what we're going to stick to.
And we try to get on a schedule to where we have both of the in-laws or both of the kids here
they are
at
on
a certain
the same
time and on the same schedule. So let me throw this out there real quick, because I think this is important. Do not be one of those couples. Don't be one of those spouses, whether you're the husband or wife, who says, "But we have to do something with my family every time," and cheat the in-laws out of swapping with their time because you have to do something with your family every year. That is unfair,
That is
unkind,
unfair.
and not right. And so if you're one of those people who go, "But I love my family," well, your in-laws love their kids and their grandkids too. And so do not, say, "Well, if we can work it out where we can go to the in-laws this year, that's fine, but we will go to my parents every year for whatever it is." That is both unkind and unfair, and you're taking advantage of a situation. And no wonder your relationship with your in-laws isn't very good if that's the way that you're doing things.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a little preachy.
No, it needs
Gotta
to
be said.
It needs to be said.
You may love your parents, you may love your mom and dad, and you may love to spend Christmas, and y'all may have had some special Christmases and special Thanksgivings or whatever it is, but you take as much time with your in-laws as you're giving to your family during the holiday season.
That is exactly right.
That is the right thing to do. Number 4, be a team. This is real simple.
It is. You win together or you lose together.
Husbands and wives, you are on a team. Recognize that you can't change your family's behavior, only your response to it. Have a clear, united response that supports your marriage. That's important. And communicate every detail about the in-laws, meaning no surprises in your marriage. Don't come along to your spouse and go, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, my parents are coming tomorrow." Or, "I forgot to tell you, my mom's moving in with us." That might be a bad thing.
That would be a big source of contention, I think.
Yes. Don't you make decisions like that without talking to your spouse. That is not healthy and not good.
Yeah. Even if it's as simple as, like you said, they're coming for the weekend, you need to talk to your spouse about that before you tell your parents it's okay they can come for the weekend. So
all those things need to be cleared. Be a team. Keep an open mind. Sometimes your spouse may have a issue or a complaint or something that bothers her about somebody in your family, and they just may need to talk about it. You keep an open mind of your spouse's viewpoint and feelings towards them. Don't automatically just defend your family. You listen to what they have to say. They may see something that you don't see, but it's really important that you have an open mind with that. Here's another big one that we'll try not to be too preachy on, but this is really, really huge. Don't betray your spouse to your parents. Don't betray your spouse to your parents. Now, what that means is it is okay to share about, hey, marriage is fun, marriage is good, but do not betray your spouse's confidence and things that they're vulnerable in. Do not share secrets with your parents that only you and your spouse are supposed to know. You're not to go running back to your parents every time your spouse does something you don't like. You're not to go complaining and whining every time you don't get your way on something in your marriage. That's just unhealthy.
Yeah. The last thing, parents need is to hear all of the bad things about their son-in-law or their daughter-in-law. They want to think positive about them, and so that you can have that good relationship. And if all they're ever hearing is the negatives, then man, that makes it really tough to nurture that relationship. So
if I'm running to my parents every time going, "Well, she's not doing this or she's doing this," then they're going to have a hard time liking my wife. So you can't go talking garbage to your parents and expect them to like your spouse.
I remember a story, or not really a story, but just when my friend Joan got married, and I know she would be fine with me sharing this. When she got married, her wise father, Johnny Lott, had told her, "Do not, you're marrying Tiger, and you do not come back to this house. If y'all have a fight, a disagreement, anything of the sort. You do not come back here and tell me bad things about Tiger, because I want to think good things about him. I don't want to hear anything bad about him that's going to affect the way I think about him. So, that was very wise advice coming from her father to a new bride.
Don't come complaining to
Nope.
me.
Don't come complaining to me. So, because it does, it affects the relationship. If you're hearing, we don't want to hear that our kid is being treated badly, because they may work it out and be great the very next day, and it was really not a big deal, but we're going to remember that for a long time if
right.
If our child were to come tell us how their spouse had treated them. So yeah, don't tell your parents stuff like that. They don't need to know.
That's right. Very good point. Very good point. Be cautious about forcing a relationship, meaning, and of course, this is we don't know where everybody is in their relationship, but if you've got a strained relationship with your in-laws for one reason or another, be cautious about trying to force your spouse to, hey, you've got to like my parents, or there may be an issue there that you've got to work through. There may be a time where you need to go sit down and talk to them. Best thing you can do is not ever get to this point to where there's contention with the in-laws. Try with everything you can to be at peace with everyone in your family. That's just the best thing that can happen.
Yeah. And sometimes people are just not going to get along. Sometimes they're just not, and you can't always fix that. And I think you mentioned that if you need to go visit your parents alone, then you go visit your parents alone. If they just can't get along, you don't have to totally alienate your parents. But yeah, that's a tough one. You can't force relationships.
Right. Let's do these last two, and then this one is again for the marriage, and then the last one we're going to talk to in-laws and parents out there. But number 8, do be the bad cop, and what that means is whether you're the husband or wife, you be the spokesman, the enforcer of your marriage to your parents. Meaning, if we were having an issue with my parents, it is my job to talk to them. If we're having an issue with Lee's parents, she needs to be the one that talks to them. Do not leave it to your partner to work things out with your parents. Let their relationship be as easy as possible. So sometimes you may have to be the bad cop, and so be cautious about that. And here's a little thing we've thrown out on Facebook and our social media sites, and this is a reminder. We kind of said this a little while ago, but we'll say it again. If your spouse, if your friends are bashing your spouse, it's probably time to change friends. If your family is putting your spouse down, you got to stand up for your spouse and say that's not going to happen. Whether that's in-laws or sister or brother or whoever it is, stick up for one another. Put your spouse as number one over every other relationship except God. That's how God designed marriage.
That's true. You said if your friends are bashing your spouse, it's time to change friends. If your family's doing it, you can't hardly change families. You're stuck with the family you've got, but you've got to stick up for your spouse.
Yeah.
You really do.
I remember one time, I'll throw this out there. I love my father-in-law. He's a good man, but I always, when I was at his house and he was gone, would try to mow for him so he didn't have to get out and do it. And they have wildflowers that grow at their cabin in the mountains, and sometimes I can't tell if they're not blooming, the difference between a weed and a wildflower. And so there have been a few times I probably mowed something I shouldn't have done. And he had, in the past, had always go, well, I was kind of hoping somebody would mow, but every time I mowed, he kind of was bent out of shape that I'd mowed a wildflower. And I specifically remember you not being unkind or rude or anything else, but telling him, if you're going to complain every time he mows your yard, Dad, I'm not going to let him mow anymore. And I just remember thinking, wow, she just stuck up for me. That was a pretty big event. At least it stood out in my head as a wow. That's pretty cool, because I never would mow anything on purpose to that was supposed to be kept there, but
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to find out. But I remember you specifically taking up for me and kind of being the bad cop and thinking to myself, wow, she loves me. That was pretty awesome. That was a big thing. Let's look at the last point. We're going to talk to in-laws for a second, or
Yes.
parents out there.
Let's talk to the parents.
And that's us. If you have married kids, we're talking to you. And we're talking about how we can do a good job at being just the best in-laws in the world. And right off the bat, you need to be good at making requests and not demands. You really don't have a right to make a demand as an in-law or as a parent. You make requests, whether that's about grandkids and grandkids' birthdays, or coming to visit, or them coming for Christmas, whatever it is. You come across as making a request and not a demand, because when you make a demand, you're just setting yourself up for problems.
That's right.
So ask things like, would it be possible, rather than if you don't. So be cautious about that kind of statement.
Yeah. Ask the kids if you can come for the weekend. Don't say, hey, we're going to come this next weekend. You just can't just force your way in there. And if you ask your kids and they say, hey, this is really not a great weekend, we've got this, and this, then you be okay with that. They have their own lives, and, hopefully they're shooting straight with you and they really do have plans.
But don't get bent out of shape.
But you don't get bent out of shape, Pop-ins are never okay. If you're parents, you don't just pop in on your kids unannounced. That's never okay. What else you got?
I think one of the best things you can do as a parent is to let your children go. One of the things that I love most about, we've got a college kid, and we're going to let him fly on his own. He starts to school, but we love watching our kids do life on their own and fly on their own, and letting them go, and not feeling like we have to keep a thumb on them, not feeling like we have to tell them what they're supposed to do and how to do things. Now, if they ask, that's one thing, but when the Bible says leave and cleave, that you as a husband or as a married couple, you are to leave your parents and connect with your new spouse. I know in a lot of wedding ceremonies that I've done, I have said, parents, best thing you can do is let them go. Break the connection. Allow that to happen. Don't feel like you still have to run the show and do things. And when you as a in-law or as a parent, you look at that new in-law, daughter-in-law or son-in-law, look at them as your child as well. When our oldest son married Callie this past year, and Abby is Parker's wife, and she's been a part of our family for, is it 4 or 5 years? 5 years. You're good. I do well just to kind of remember. But Abby and Callie, I consider them my girls. They're my daughters. We consider them that. We love them. They became a part of our family, not just Taylor and Parker's wife, but I love them because my sons love them, but because they're now a part of my family as well. And I want my sons to treat them well, and I want us to treat them well. Don't want our boys to talk bad about our daughters now, our new daughters that we have. And so that's really important that we do a good job with that. Let's close by reading a couple of things or saying a couple of things to parents of married children, and see if we can kind of conclude this as good as possible.
Okay. So just a word to the parents of married kids. You've been training your children for independence since their birth. You've taught them how to cook, wash dishes, make beds, make responsible decisions. And now that they're married, it's time to celebrate their independence. You need to respect them as equals. Doesn't mean that you are not going to help your children any longer, your married children, but it does mean that you'll first ask if they want your help. An unwanted gift is not really a gift, but a burden. You should not use gifts to influence your married child by saying something like, we'll buy you a new car if you will come bring the grandchildren to see us, once a month or whatever. That's not a gift, but that's an attempt to manipulate.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah. So a good rule for parents wanting to advise their married children is that parents should give advice only when it's requested. If your children have not requested your wisdom and you want to share it, you at least need to ask their permission. You know, you might say, hey, we went through a similar situation. Would you like me to kind of tell you about that, how we dealt with that? Giving unsolicited advice to your married children does not build a positive relationship. If they don't want to hear your advice, you don't give it. So, your married children need the emotional warmth that comes from a wholesome relationship with both sets of parents. And parents need the emotional warmth that comes from their relationship with their married children. Life is too short to live with broken relationships.
Amen, sister.
We will not always agree with our married children, but we can offer respect and give them the freedom to make their own decisions.
You know, life is about doing our best to live at peace with all people. Whether we're the kids talking about our parents and in-laws, or we're the parents talking about our kids, you do your best to live at peace in your family, because that will make life much, much better. Last thing we'll say to the in-laws out there, to the parents, is when your kids get married, you decide in advance that you're going to be the most drama-free, loving, supportive in-laws on the planet. You will have tremendous power if you do this to either make your kids' marriage feel very blessed or very stressed. And if you love your children, you will strive for blessed and not stressed.
That's true. You know, some people just love drama, but man, we want to encourage parents out there to be drama-free.
I'm not a big drama fan.
Drama's not good.
Drama's not. I don't mind watching a little drama on TV, but that's the only place I don't want it in my life. Don't want no drama in my life.
That's right.
You know, we've had a lot of people that have said, talk about in-laws, and here you go. Hopefully this has blessed you, and hopefully this has helped you. If you get a chance, if you've listened, we'd appreciate it if you'd rate the podcast wherever it is that you're watching, that you'd leave a review. That would help. And share. Let folks know. This is a great time. Podcasts are very popular. A great time with everything going on for couples to listen to podcasts, whether you listen to it with your spouse or maybe you listen to it and later your spouse listens to it. Use this as a tool to bless your marriage, a podcast. And there's a lot of good marriage podcasts out there.
There are. Yep.
Thanks for listening today. We appreciate you guys.
Yes.
Y'all are all so awesome, and we just are honored that you have joined us, and we hope that you'll hang out with us again next week. We would like that.
See y'all.